Yeah, we are back. Apologies for that. As Rotosaur says, someone needs to go out and take a hike. Stop staring at your screen all day. But yes, obviously, last we did 13th for Forest Green Rovers, about halfway through the League Two predictions. We're going to be trying to get through the rest of the EFL and Premier League ones during today. I'll speed up a bit because that first video was a bit of a while. But if you did join it, and I hope you enjoyed it then, and let me know in both this one and your last one whether you think I am a muppet, whether your predictions were any better, or whether you think that I said something wrong in the video. 12th, I went with Barrow, and Barrow finished 8th, which wasn't too bad. They do this incredibly well. Somehow managed to battle at the top of the league. Like like battling for the playoff positions isn't easy in any league, and I mean it's League Two is always a lot more competitive than most leagues of the Championship, probably in terms of who can fit into them playoffs because it goes down to seventh in terms of who's in the playoffs. But for me, it's one of them things that Barrow I did not expect to be up in them echelons. Most of the time, I thought, yeah, they nailed it. They're going to be in the playoffs, and somehow they didn't. But 12th is interesting that it seems to be like an under prediction. When realistically, most people would have thought if I said, "Oh yeah, 2 and a bit years ago, maybe like." Oh yeah, I think 2023, 24, Barrow going to be 12th. They would have been like, yeah, we can see that. Now, looks a bit silly, doesn't it? But how the world changes. 11th, I went with Notts County and finished 14th. Not too bad about that one. It's 4 points ultimately. Yeah, I think Notts County are one of them teams which I sort of predicted to be in that mid-table picture. I think they have a good club. They looked at the very beginning like they were going to absolutely storm it and do back-to-back promotions, and then, well, bottle of the second half of the season, I think, is what has happened there. But I think you do look at that team of Notts County outfit, and it does streak that it should be probably a bit better than League Two quality. But at the same time, it's one of them things like maybe it's a bit too old. Maybe we need a bit more legs. Maybe some of the people who left was just a bit too much for them to be able to continue performing at their full firepower. Obviously, it was inevitable that the squad was going to be a bit ripped apart when they got promoted. But it's interesting to see if next season they can build from that mid-table finish. Anything would. I mean, do we say that they could get into the playoffs next season? I think that ultimately depends, actually. There's a lot of things still to be settled upon, and it's a while still till I'm going to be doing the League Two promotions. I mean, for goodness sake, we haven't even had a Championship playoffs yet. 10th, Bradford City. I'm not mad about this one. They actually finished 9th. That's completely fine with me. There's that one position in it. I mean, they always look good in this league, don't they, Bradford? They got probably the best fans in League Two by a country mile. They've got one of the best stadiums out there, even though part of it was burnt down and having to be rebuilt. It's still a great, passionate fan base. I mean, some of the players have some quite experience as well. So yeah, I think that improvement has definitely come about. In part due to the fans and in part due to good management, I think. And you look at it and they're not too far off. They were 1 point off the playoffs. I think there is a shout. If somebody said that they were going to reach playoffs next season, I would not bat an eyelid, is what I'm saying. I'm not sure if I'm quite comfortable yet in being able to make that conviction. This second half of the season has been particularly good for them, though. So if they continue that momentum, then certainly that I could be in the playoffs. It's about keeping that momentum for the whole season is the real question. Do Bradford have it in their tank? Ninth went Crawley Town and finished 7th. Again, not mad. 1 point, as I've just alluded to. A lot of people call me quite mad for this because they were in like that sort of relegation pit sort of fighting thing. But this just proves to me that what I've been saying this whole time, that League Two is very hard to predict. Like, you guys go and stand in front of a camera and make predictions for the whole world to see and be ridiculed. Like, Crawley Town are a team that I had a lot of respect for, and they were competitive for the playoffs for quite a while. So I thought, you know what, the season before last was just a one-off blip, and you know what, it was a one-off blip, and they did it. They went back to the playoffs. So yeah, I think you look at Crawley, and it's one of them teams that, well, we're now going to be a League One outfit because they've just been promoted from the playoffs. Congratulations on that, of course. But it's one of them teams that, do I think they're going to be able to stay up in League One? Probably not. I'm not entirely convinced they got everything going right over that club. But they've done what they managed to hold their nerves where it mattered. It's just now about building upon them foundations that they've had for all these years, kicking around at the either bottom or top of League Two. And don't start playing football that is League Two football because it doesn't work in the league above. 8th went with Salford City. Okay, they finished 20th. Can someone actually enlighten me what happened with Salford? Because they were in that playoff picture. And I mean, I wasn't surprised they stayed in League Two for so long. Yeah, I think they have finally come to realise that you can't sack a manager after finishing the playoffs. So Derby realised that, and I think many other people did as well. It's one of the things, like, I can see echoes of Derby in it, and how much longer until, I don't think they'll put them in administration, how much longer until FFP charges maybe come calling, or the 92 group decide that they want to walk away from a project, because we know footballers can be fickle. So it's like one of the things, like, yeah, 20th is not ideal for where Salford want to be. At the moment, it's where they are, and I actually thought they'd be challenging for playoffs because, they're one of them teams which were always there. Well, but not anymore. 7th, Swindon Town. They finished 19th. This has been a bit of a disappointing season, I think, for the Railwaymen. Is that what they're called? No, they're called the Robins, aren't they? The Railwaymen and Crew Alexandra, what am I talking about? But yeah, I think yet again another disappointing season, and have we begun to see Swindon as a bit of a club which is maybe sliding into the decline? I think this is actually the lowest finish they've had since they've been in the Football League. I think I read that somewhere, and I think it shows. The fan base is getting annoyed at the owner and say that the owner doesn't care anymore. It's not my place for saying that. That's up to him, and whether the owner himself doesn't actually care is up to him, and he probably won't say it face to face with the fans, but if he doesn't care, then it shows on the pitch, ultimately. And I think people players as well aren't attracted to Swindon Town as much, because it's not a guarantee that they're going to get to the playoffs, because before it was, they'll be in the playoff picture, I'd like to have a chance of getting promotion on my CV. Well, they're no longer in that position. I mean, there needs to be a real look around at that team, because they've been poor for a lot of this season. 6th, Sutton United. Okay, how did they get 23rd then? I mean, I just thought, lovely underdog story, you like to support an underdog. they've just not beat. I mean, every year they got tipped for relegation and went to the playoffs, right? And everyone's saying, "Oh, we'll be relegated this season," and I was like, "No, because they get to the playoffs, you see." Um, but no, like there's being dogged and determined, and I think they just at the end they had that dogged determination for trying to get out of relegation zone. Hence why they got from like 30 something odd points to the 42 mark they finished the season with in a desperate attempt to get out of relegation zone. And they actually were out of relegation zone for a bit of it. Colchester looked like they were going to be relegated at some parts of the season. It was just that really poor start of the season where they were on about 23 points, for what seemed like an eternity. And they just needed to pull together and actually get a string of results going. And it came a little too late. But I think if next season, if they carry on showing that determination, I think there's a chance they may be in the playoffs. I'm not sure they're quite good enough to be winners of a league. I think maybe an outside shout for playoffs, but it's one of them difficult ones that depends how many people go, how many people stay. Relegation has all sorts of ramifications in terms of people who want to. I mean, do people want to stay in non-league? Non-league is better now than it was, but it's still not as great as going in front of aces like Bradford or the Bescott, or maybe in a few leagues above if they've been key players for Sutton. So, or maybe they want to join a team on the higher echelons of non-league who are looking up instead of looking down as they're currently doing. Maybe they're wanting to move to Barnet or somewhere like that across London. So it's all a matter of perception. Fifth, I went with Colchester. Oh, my League Two predictions haven't been great this season. I even said it was a stupid prediction, and yes, it was a stupid prediction. I really, really am disappointed in Colchester this season, and really they should have been relegated. I mean, they've been subpar. Oh. Apologies for that, crikey. What was I saying? Oh yes, Colchester. I think they got a very, very young squad, and I think that's an issue. I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed. They need to bring some experience in. Once you get some experience in, maybe you'll be able to get to that 55-point mark or something like that, where they may be slightly better and around about, 20th, 19th. But honestly, I can't see the future for Colchester at the moment. They look like they're just travelling backwards. I mean, one day they're going to slip into that relegation zone, completely sleepwalk into it, in my opinion. And maybe getting put in that relegation zone was a kick up the backside they needed to be able to string together only a few runs. It's been a bit of an iffy season all season for them. But yeah, certainly it's something that I want to see better in that club. Sorry if you experienced a bit of lag there. If what I'm saying with it says on my end that you came with some lag. I don't know if that was true. But Wrexham finished second. I predicted them to be fourth. Yeah, they actually did manage to immediately. They didn't dominate the league, as I said they wouldn't. Did they do better than I predicted? Maybe slightly. I think in League One, though, it's not going to be an easy ride. I'm not sure where they'll finish in League One, but I don't think it's going to be promotion because at the moment they seem to be bringing in a lot of former Premier League players, which I don't know how used these players are to a rough and tumble of the lower EFL. And they dropped points this season because of this rough. You look at the results which they lost against, and I look at them, and I think, well, you can make excuses here, you can make excuses there, but I'm just gonna quickly look at the matches overview, and 5-0 loss to Stockport County early in the season. Then they had a bit of a blip in December, February time, where like they either won by a lot or they lost by a lot. That's what I'm sort of realizing within this pattern. Losing 5-3 to an opening day of the season to MK Dons is not an ideal sort of position, is it? But I think they remind me a lot of Leeds United when they were in that championship winning season. That they did everything right, but occasionally they had an off day. And then when they went up, they did great in their first season, and their off day came back and became more and more regular. Do I see the same happening with Wrexham? Well, that's a real question. And it's up to the management team to put that mentality in place that it doesn't. But you look at Salford, I mean, it's not a bed of roses. It's not an easy walk to just waltz into League One and get straight up into the Championship in their first season. I don't know if anyone's done that. There must be someone in the past who's done it, but it's a rare occurrence. I know that this season just gone by, there's been a few back-to-back promotions, but including Wrexham itself. But I've don't triple back-to-back is not often an occurrence. Third, Stockport County. Well, they finished first. Congratulations, you won the league. Very well done. I think I was right in terms of this. I think the hurdles they have done and been through was enough to be able to get them over the line. And you know what? Dave Challinor, I think, is one of the best managers in League Two. I mean, I think Simon Weaver is probably the best. I mean, I know the results don't show it on the pitch because Harrogate finished 13th, but I think that's more over his longevity of his career and about what he's done in Harrogate as opposed to this season as such. This season, without a shadow of doubt for me, Dave Challinor has been the best season, and he is and he has been one of the best managers to regularly get success with, particularly Stockport. He's done absolute miracles. And so, Stockport, I just want to say well done. Welcome to League One next season. Edgeley Park, absolute beautiful stadium. One of them traditional grounds that are dotted around that greater Manchester region, and they should be able to be in the picture for, I want to say that they're going to probably stay up. But I don't know if it'll be higher than mid-table, but I think they're doing good so far. Second, I went with AFC Wimbledon, who actually finished 10th. Bit of a letdown for the Dons. I mean, I know they finished really low last season, like 16th or something this season. Like, when I say last season, I mean 2022-23. But realistically, they're a club which should be in the playoffs, shouldn't they? And they have removed a lot. Oh, no, they got relegated the season before, didn't they? Yeah. So, no, that was the season before that. Okay. Yes, that was right. Okay. Just trying to gather my bearings here. But no, Wimbledon, I thought were going to do a bit better this season. They did all right. They looked like at one point they were going to be in the playoffs, and it was going to be AFC Wimbledon versus MK Dons in the playoffs, and was going to be one of the best playoffs of all time. Yeah, that didn't happen. But they have got a good, energetic team. They're going to do well. I can see a good, bright future now, and I don't think it'll be long until they get promoted next season. I don't know. But they are a good team to watch on their day. First, Crewe Alexandra. Well, they finished 6th. Now, I don't think that's too bad of a prediction. I think Crewe is always a difficult place to go. But yeah. Thank you, Will, for that comment. Thank you, Will, for that comment. Yes, Sheffield Wednesday fan, of course, will come to you later. A big fan, and you are my favourite youth football-based YouTube channel. Wow, high praise indeed. But thanks a lot, then. really gets you up in the morning hearing praise like that. So thanks a lot, and hope you're having a good day too, Will. But yes, Crew were actually in League One in 2021-22. So for me, it wasn't a mad step up to sort of say that Crew was one of them teams that looked like they were going to be in it to win it, to coin the phrase from that old TV show. But no, they did well actually, and I think playoffs was probably right for where they were throughout that season, and they did well in the playoffs in the end. I mean, I know they didn't quite make it on that final hurdle at Wembley. I think it was Wembley they went to. Yeah, it was. But yeah, it was certainly good outing for the Alexandra faithful, and good luck next season. On to League One. Derby were in League One this season, of course, so been keeping an eye across the tabs. And hopefully I got a bit better with this one. 24th, Leyton Orient. Well, Leyton Orient surprised, I think, most of the league this season by finishing 11th. I mean, Llewellyn's 10 out of 10 has got to be one of the better managers that I've seen out there. And I want to say, as a matter of fact, that I apologise for putting Leyton in relegation battle. And I must say, some of the play they have done this year, they've not been a discredit to the league either. It's not been like Joey Barton's Bristol Rovers, which is really, really scrappy and trying to bite every point out the opposition. They've actually been good, entertaining value of football. And that's the sort of football which I think the fans excites is them, and it's one of the ones which I think Leyton Orient have got quite a high ceiling, actually. We'll see where they end up in a few seasons' time. But if they end up in the Championship, I would not actually be surprised. And I mean, back to the glory days of Leyton Orient, hey? I know they were in the first division in the 1960s, but I don't think we go that far. 23rd, I put Shrewsbury Town, and Shrewsbury Town actually finished 19th. Yeah, I'm not embarrassed about that one. Shrewsbury's not been great this season. They weren't relegation ones because the relegation teams were pretty much settled throughout most of the season, to be honest, apart from maybe Cambridge, who had that interesting run of form, which changed it a bit towards the end. But Steve Cotterill left the club, so I didn't entirely know what to expect, but I shouldn't have put Shrewsbury in relegation because they always manage to scrape survival no matter what. So it's one of them teams that always scrape survival, did so again, probably will do again next season, a bit like Burton Albion, and that's about enough said on them. Oxford United. Well, they were not 22nd. Quite the opposite. Yeah, 5th. Who saw that coming then? Was Liam Manning the same? Was he manager? Crikey. I will hold my hands up then. That attacking style of play which Oxford implement clearly works in League One, which I did not see it coming. And you got to remember, he got MK Dons relegated to League Two. So I wasn't absolutely mad when I said that Liam Manning was going to get Oxford relegated. And so I was impressed with some of the signings, to be fair. That there were impressive signings. But I just thought, you know what, they're going to concede too many goals. But no, they flipping won the playoffs. So congratulations. They scored 79 goals this season, which is more than both Derby and Portsmouth, the top two. Let's not bear that in mind. That's the 4th highest scoring in the league. And they didn't concede loads. They only conceded 56, which is still a lot, but that's more mid-table in terms of thinking. No, congratulations. Absolute legendary. I am actually shocked that they managed to win the playoffs. You got past both. The other teams are Bolton, Peterborough and Barnsley, all who are more favourites than you to getting promoted. and you've somehow managed to do that. Well, welcome to the Championship for the first time in like 10 years or something. It's over 10 years now, isn't it? Like, it's been a while. 21st, Wigan Athletic. They finished 12th. Okay. I want to say they got that 8 points deduction. They did. I didn't quite know how the players were going to take it. I mean, it's one of them things that adversity pulls the team closer together, as opposed to some cases such as like Dover, where it's ripped them apart. If you look at the last part of the video, the part one, you'll see what I was talking about there. But I just think, originally I was like, no, Wigan won't get relegated. I was actually going to put Wigan roughly in mid-table position. And then I was like, never got a -8 flipping points deduction. Why would I put them in mid-table? That's just stupid. They lost a load of players as well. But no, they've done well. They've actually been one of the best teams to watch this season. And that's coming from a Derby fan who actually watches Derby. So it's like, I would say Wigan play better than Derby in terms of on their day, they're a better ball-playing team. And next season, fresh slate. What's to say they can't go on a charge and look in the promotion picture? That's what I'm saying. 20th, Exeter City. They finished 13th. My League One predictions have been a bit off this season. Although, did anyone actually see Exeter finishing mid-table? No, I didn't. I mean, they lost a lot of players at the beginning of the season. And to be fair, the formation they do play, they didn't have all the players required to play it at the time I was making the predictions. But no, I think Exeter have done quite well this season. I mean, they've not been the most entertaining, they've not been the worst, they've just been a bit meh, like sort of in that mid-table picture. Difficult away day, of course, to go to Exeter. Difficult long trip for a lot of fans to go down to the southwest. It's a good solid 4.5 hours or so from Derby, I think, by car. So it's not an easy one to get to, but they made it a fortress and they've done very well. That's why they're in mid-table. Oh no, I didn't say 19th was Portsmouth, did I? Oh no. The people who flipping won the league, I put in 19th. Like, everyone was like, oh, Pompey are going to be dark horses and win the league. I was like, whatever. But no, I should have been honest. They had the best squad in the league, without a shadow of a doubt. John Messino is the Jose Mourinho of League One. I will agree with the Pompey fans on that. And some of the best support as well at Fratton Park as well. What a stadium. Like, getting them 20,000 in regularly, bouncing away. It's a great trip. And I think it's something which is well worth seeing at some point. I need to put it on my bucket list as a places to go and see. As you may notice by my shorts, I'm mainly focused on long league matches. But I'm glad to see you back in the Championship. A slow return yet. Not quite as far as some pundits are saying, oh, we're going to be back in the Premier League before you know it. No, they are not. But it's a good step. Good to see them out of League One again. They have had a rotten time over the last few years, and it's great to see Fratton back at its full bouncing capacity. And yeah, I apologise for putting you in 19th. 18th, Carlisle, the team who were the foot of the table, must have been the strongest ones up there with only their 30 points. Yeah, Paul Simpson, he's very well known for getting clubs out of the league, so I think they did a good job with sticking with him at the end of the day, because I do think that he could do a good job next season. I mean, not saying that he shouldn't have been sacked. I mean, getting 30 points is very poor, but it is one of them things that it's a perfect sort of perfect storm in a way, that it was one of the strongest relegation pictures for a while in terms of the threshold needed to get out of the league was Actually, it wasn't that strong, was it? Only Burton has only got 46. Yeah, but some of the teams at the top were quite good. So all of the top 7, I would argue, were quite good value for money. Yeah, I just think it was too early, maybe, for Carlisle. Maybe in a few seasons they'll come back up and do a bit better. 17th, Northampton Town. They finished 14th. Yeah, that's not too bad of a prediction, in my defence. I think they were going to be solid mid-table, and that's exactly what they were. Putting precise numbers on things is always a difficulty. You just got to put if someone's in mid-table, you just got to fit around in mid-table, and it can pretty much be anyone in anywhere. So that's not really an issue. I'm happy with a Northampton one. John Brady, good manager. He knows how to get a result. I think that is fair to say. In the 6th field is a place which will be an interesting place. It's not always full, but they did an all right job this season. 16th, Burton Albion. They finished 20th. Yeah, but I mean, I follow a bit of Burton Albion. They're sort of a team which I keep an eye on from being from the locality, of course. They are the Minos of this league. They're like the small underdogs, and that. But I think people are beginning to find them out a bit. I don't know whether Dino Mamria is necessarily the right person for the job. Nigel Clough won't return because he's just got promoted with flipping Mansfield. I could have sworn I mentioned about Mansfield, although did I? Yeah, congratulations, Mansfield. I think I might have forgotten about you during the video. I can't remember where I even put you, to be fair. 14th. Yeah, I think I might have skipped you there. But well done, Mansfield. You defied my expectations. But back onto Burton. Yeah, I think a bit of a refresh of the squad is needed. A bit more League One pedigree needs to be brought in, and stop looking over the shoulder. I think because they're constantly looking over their shoulder, and every season they're getting closer and closer to being relegated. 15th went with Cheltenham, which was the team in 21st, who was the team below Burton. Yeah, I think you saw the season prior that they did have the makeup of a decent League One team. Some of that was ripped apart, though. And they did bring in some experience. But I think it was a little bit too old. Curtis Davis ultimately didn't play that many games, but once he did get a bit bypassed. And so, yeah, I think the Robins, will they get straight back up? I think that is quite heavily likely, but it's a hard league to get out of. So we'll see. But I think Cheltenham have the infrastructure there. If they just stick with it, they would have made a good League One team. But yeah. 14th, Stevenage. They finished 9th. That's a bit of a... Stevenage has been a surprise package, I think, this season for most people. They were in 6th place every single time I looked at the table, and it's like, why is Stevenage like 5th or 6th or 4th or what? It's like, what? How have they done this? Like, it's Stevenage, okay? And Steve Evans, he's like one word, like he's literally one letter off becoming Stevenage in his name. Has anyone else never realised that? He is Marmite, but he's done well. He cannot be denied. He's done well. And it's one of them things, like, they were definitely good enough for mid-table. They were better than mid-table. They're actually probably a solid League One team. I just think a lot of people will have seen this season by Stevenage, and it's one of them things like, they're not a club which is going to be able to maintain keeping all them good players, the Nathan Thompson, the three Thompsons rather, and the Harry Andersons. I know he's already been linked with places. Nick Freeman, Dan Butler, all these sort of big names, some of which are probably already left, but the ones which I mentioned at the beginning of the season anyway. That just, I feel there's going to be a bit of ripping apart during this window, and they need to make sure they adequately replace, but I don't think they have the budget to do so. 13th, Cambridge United. Well, they finished 18th. Yes, it's a bit meh. Mark Bonner is a manager who goes and knows the strengths, I think, of Cambridge. I mean, I think I'm right in saying that Cambridge is one of them teams that nobody really is sure how they did it. They survived, but somehow they did it. Like, I mean, 18th, pretty damn good. But no, I think powerful team, Cambridge. But I think our next season, we're looking at them going down with a quality of teams coming up from League One, not from League Two, sorry. Possibly in amongst that picture again, potentially, yeah. 12th, Port Vale, and they finished 23rd. I'm quite surprised with this one. I thought, you know what, Port Vale, defensive solidity, you know what you get. But no, they conceded 74 goals. So that defensive solidity I was talking about, I just don't think they had the defense. Yeah, I think I was unsure. I thought that they were going to bring in some better defense during the transfer window, and they didn't. And I think that's the book lies in the manager with that. But they had the odd good result. Like let's not mess around. They knew they had an occasional good result in them. It was just too little, too much. Yeah. So 15th was Bristol Rovers, and they were 11th. Well, physical side, there's no time to grind out results. I thought mid-table would be fairly obvious, and they were mid-table, so I'm going to take that. Yeah. 10th, I went with Fleetwood. Okay, that was a bit of a wild call, and they did finish 22nd. I mean, again, we're back to it. FA Cup, good FA Cup forms don't translate into the league. I need to learn that for next season because they had Danny Mayer he helped Plymouth to the championship. They had Ryan Broom, who was a decent player. Ryan Graydon. I mean, some of these players really shouldn't be going down to League Two because I think the issue was it was a team of individuals. I think that's you notice like flashes of individual brilliance, but they didn't work as a team. That's why they were relegated. If they had teamwork, they could have probably got a bit more points and stayed up. 9th, Peterborough, and they finished 4th. Okay. So you got to look at the beginning. When I was recording this, they had lost a huge chunk of their team. Some of the amazing hearts as well. We're talking about the Ollie Norburns, the Joe Wards, the Christy Pims of this world. And I thought that absolutely wrenched the heart out of the squad. But I think they adequately replaced quite well. And I did rate Darren Ferguson as manager. And this is always the issue with making predictions during the transfer window. You don't know who they're going to bring in. And they brought in some good players to be able to adequately cope with the demands. Did they get promoted via the playoffs? No. Did they give people a run for the money in the terms of the promotion hunt? Almost certainly yes. Everyone was like, oh, watch out for Peterborough. They're a dark horse. They're going to knock Derby off their perch. Well, the pressure was actually on them because they had the games in hands and they blew it. So I think Peterborough, well done in terms of where you finished, but I think it's probably about where your fan base expected. So I think they may have even expected you to at least take it to the playoff final against Bolton, would have been what the playoff final that people would have been asking for was. But it never came. 8th, Charlton Athletic. Yeah, 16th. Charlton's had a disappointing season. Again, it feels like I'm saying the same thing as I said exactly this time last year. What are these new owners doing then? Because I thought these new owners come in and breathe a breath of life into this club, which has been meandering in mid-table of League One, where they really shouldn't be. Let's be honest, they should probably be between League One and the Championship, sort of maybe a yo-yo team. But no, I think Charlton have become a bit of a rut, a bit of a team with one of them ones which they're not entirely sure where they are. Are they wanting to look up the table at the risk of overspending and then the gamble failing? Or are they trying to conserve money and not get relegated? In that case, they're doing a job so far, but that negativity may come back to bite them. I'm unsure. Seventh, Blackpool. When we finished eighth, 1 point. I'm not going to complain about that. That's a decent prediction for me. I think Neil Critchley, did he leave? Did Neil Critchley leave? Because I think Blackpool never really looked in the driving seat for being able to get into that playoff position, did they? No, he's still at Blackpool. But I think the thing is Blackpool they got very good fans which demand a lot. And was that demands too excessive? I think some Blackpool fans were thinking, oh, yeah, we're going to get into the playoffs. I mean, I thought they were going to get into the playoffs. And then when it didn't quite end up immediately happening, it took a bit of a while. It was a bit of a slow start to the season, around about 9th, 10th. And then they eventually got together, but I think it was just a bit too late, But no, they have some good players, and I could see them being in the playoffs next season. 6th, Reading. Okay, interesting club. They finished 17th. I thought adversity brings people together. It seems in some cases it does, in some cases it doesn't. In terms of Reading, it seems like everybody's just wanting out at the moment. And I think they've got a 4 points deduction as well, which is not great, of course, for the Royals. I do feel like that the infrastructure and everything about the club is championship standard. They've just decided, their owner is the most apathetic, useless. I'm not going to say the word I was going to use to describe him, but a piece of something which is not very pleasant. Let's just put it that way. I don't think he's got the club's interest at heart. I think he wants it to get rid of it. He wants to try and plunge it into liquidation or administration, and it's just horrible for the fans. And I hope the very best for Reading. I honestly do. He shouldn't have passed the fit and proper test. It'll be interesting, I think, to see in the next few seasons where Reading are going to be. I fear League Two, but the optimistic part of me is hoping back in the Championship. 5th, I went with Wycombe Wanderers. Is it me, or the 10th they finished, by the way, that Wycombe just haven't been noticeable this season? Like, no one's really been talking about them. Like, they used to always be in the playoffs for League One. Like, they were in and around it, and sort of a team which you sort of expect to be there come the end of the season. And this season, they've all been a bit quiet. Like, quietly getting along with the job, but never really looking up enough to get to the playoffs. I'm just not entirely sure what happened with Wycombe this season. I don't know if it was one of them seasons where they just wanted to have a bit of a rebuild, a bit of a sort of, we'll try and get automatics next season from now, and we're going to have a building project. If it was a building project, they definitely didn't bring the right people in. I'm going to say that now, because then players were for the here and now. Luke Leahy and Richard Keogh are both players for the here and now. And Richard Keogh didn't work. I'm not sure about Luke Leahy. I think he did. But, yeah. 4th, Bolton Wanderers, and they finished 3rd. I'm not complaining about that one. It was roughly right. Ian Evatt is a good manager, and his style of play does prove to work. He does moan a bit, but I think that's what good managers tend to do. Like, you look at Klopp, moans. Look at Arteta, moans. So I think it's just because he demands the very best from his team. And in that regard, I think that's why Bolton are, for me, they've got to be favourites to being able to be in the top echelons of the league next season. Will they get promoted? It's not the strongest bunch which is coming down, is it? So who says no? Maybe the budget, but I'm not sure. Third, I went with Barnsley. They finished in sixth, both in the playoffs. Yeah, I think a lot of that was inspired by looking at the opening day of the season, which you should never do. Never look at the opening day of the season to inspire it. But I think playoffs was destined. You look at Barnsley, they do every season they finish in the playoffs. And if they go up, then they get relegated straight back down. It's one of them clubs which they don't quite know whether League One or the league above in the Championship level. A bit like Rotherham. And it's, in fact, is this going to be Rotherham v Barnsley for the first time in absolute years? Because they normally like overlap with each other like that. But oh well, good ground in terms of old-fashioned good fans and stuff like that. Makes a lot of noise as well. So yeah. Second, Lincoln City. Now, this was a bit of a mad guess to begin the season. They finished seventh, which isn't actually too bad. I think a lot of people tipped them as an underdogs, including myself. So I think you look at Lincoln City as a club which is really going places. If they went into the playoffs, what's to say that they would not have won it? We saw Oxford win it. Well, I could also say Lincoln in a few seasons becoming another underdog. Plymouth weren't really expected to be promoted when they were. Ipswich weren't predicted to be promoted when they were. I mean, Luton weren't predicted to go up into the Premier League when they were. So we've had a lot of upsets recently. And if Lincoln is the next one, it would not surprise me. First, Derby. Well, they finished second. Of course, I was going to go first. I'm a Derby fan, so there is nothing else I was going to do other than put them on top of the league. I might be delusional and say that they're going to go for the back-to-back promotions. We'll have to see. But I think you look at it, and it's just a squad which breeds a family almost. And it is getting a bit ripped apart with Max Bird leaving, with Joe Wildsmith, one of our better keepers that we've had in quite a while, leaving. I hope we do adequately replace him because he will be a big blow if we don't. The captain's gone. Not that overly surprises me, that move. So much with Conor Hourihane, I think, is a bit past being championship standard. But you look at Nathaniel Mendes-Lang, who was the PFA League One Player of the Season. His dribbling has been immense. His upper body strength. He's had the most amount of assists that we've had since like the 1990s. We have the highest points record of all time. We've had one of the best defensive records. I mean, we've only conceded 37 goals, which is absolutely immense. A credit to the back duo of Erin Cashin and Curtis Nelson. Obviously, the goalkeeper as well. Sonny Bradley occasionally helping out. And just that back two, though, with Cashin and Nels was something else. I wasn't worried every single time that the ball came into our box because we've actually been great at set pieces for once, and we've even scored a few along the way. Yeah, this is a team which is absolutely filling my heart with pride, and it's good to see Derby back again. You know, I actually was on the verge of tears when Derby got promoted. It was that good. It was something which you don't see a promotion often. It's one of the things like it may happen 3 or 4 times in someone's life, depending on the club. Sometimes it will never. I doubt with Derby. Derby will probably get promoted again at some point. But I think, and I'll probably see it. But it's these moments that you got to cherish. And I thank you, Paul Warne, for what you have done to this club. And I thank you, David Clowes, for one who saved Derby and has turned it around for the betterment of everyone. So thank you. On to the second tier, the good old Championship, which I probably have got every single one wrong, because this is such an unpredictable league. 24th, Plymouth Argyle. not the worst prediction. They finished 21st. Bit of a nervy end of the season, Plymouth. I think we can fair to say. I actually wrote them off. I completely wrote them off. And like, they're going to be like the Wickhams. They're going to go straight back down. No, they stayed up, but I think it's going to be a bit difficult next season. I think the home advantage is always the best advantage, I think, that Plymouth have. Like, home park can be a fortress. It's a long way. It's in Plymouth. Flipping it, their nearest club's Bristol City, which is already over 100 miles away, and then it's even further from there. So it's not a nice place to go. But I think Plymouth managed to get enough results. I'm not sure next season if they will. They're still quite a young squad. They have quite a good high ceiling, but it's where they want to go, I think. 23rd, I got Stoke, and they finished 17th. Stoke bore me in terms of their amount of deadwood, the expectation, and every season they end up in the lower mid-table drab. And it's like, at what point are we accepting that Stoke are not getting back into the Premier League any point soon? I mean, I actually thought we were going to get FFP deductions, so I thought that's one of the reasons why I put them in 23rd. If they got 6 points deducted, which I predicted, they would have only on 50 points, the same as Birmingham. So, on the one hand, yeah, they were mid-table as usual. On the other, how long is this sustainable for? I don't know. 22nd, I went with Cardiff City. Well, Cardiff City finished 12th, so yeah, this is a bit of a poor one. I mean, Cardiff, I'm not entirely sure where their headspace is at. Are they challenging to playoffs? Are they mid-table? Do they want to avoid relegation? I just don't know. I really don't know. I mean, has Aaron Ramsey been that good this season? He's not the one who's carrying the team by the looks of it. So it's something that I just think Cardiff within a few years have got to either really go for it or accept that it's going to be a few seasons of absolute boredom, which may end up in relegation. I'm not sure yet, though, which one. 23rd, Huddersfield Town. Well, we're 23rd. Yeah, they've been a bit hit and miss this season. They sort of binned off at least half the squad. Now, that I don't think is good. Like, a clear out of that wholesale nature, not in non-league as well. So you can't just randomly bring in some random dummy whenever you want. Like, Neil Warnock's left as well, and probably rightfully so. He was in a bit of a dreadful position with Huddersfield. But I think you look at it, I think Huddersfield doing in League One will actually be doing a bit good for the club. You give them time to clear their heads, realise that there's a lot of dead wood at that club. There's a lot of talent as well. There's a lot of talent, but the people who they're bringing in are like championship players who have been round for so long, like Sorba Thomas or someone like that. Like, yeah, good player, solid player on his day. But you've just brought in a load of players who are teams of old individuals and they don't work well as a team. 20th, I went with Watford, which came out as quite a big haul that I made at the beginning of the season. They finished in 15th. So I don't actually think too bad. A lot of the pundits were like, oh, yeah, playoffs. It's always Watford with the playoffs, isn't it? But I think Watford this season have been the most underwhelming and disappointing team, arguably in the entirety of the EFL, if not entirety of all the predictions I've made. They've been underwhelming to say the least. Like, Watford is normally a team that gets you off the edge of your seat. Like, you're not sure. It'll be a cracker. It'll be a 4-3 winner. And that's partly because the crackers have left. The João Pedros and Ismail Assars have both left. And I couldn't really see, like, Watford at the moment in what the trajectory is. They're sort of, are they wanting to keep some young players and train them through? Or are they going to get a bit more experience and trying to get a knowledgeable standard League One. Because sorry, not League One, Championship manager. Like I think they tried to do that with Chris Wilder and it didn't work. So, and Chris Wilder would have never worked at Watford anyway. It's not the right fit. So I think that's part of the issue. Is like, what are they planning on doing? And Valorant Ishmael as well. I think that's was a poor appointment as well. 19th, Ipswich Town. Flipping it, they went to go and finish second, didn't they? Only did that. Right, okay. Hands up if any of you actually predicted Ipswich to get promoted again. Yeah, I didn't think so. Kieran McKenna, great manager. Probably the manager of the season I'm going to go with for Championship. I think that their team has actually been so flipping good. Like, I could wax lyrical about so many players, but I'm not going to because it'll bore you, for one. But Amari Hutchinson is one I'm going to absolutely nail down as one for the future. Yeah, Amari Hutchinson, he could go, he's got the world at his feet right now. He could walk into any club and they may be wanting to. It's up to him whether he goes back to Ipswich, but he was only on loan. He doesn't have any obligations to do so. Do I see Ipswich being able to stay in the Premier League? Absolutely not. I'm sorry, but you're not. I'm reckoning probably last place. I think a lot of that team is going to be ripped apart because it's full of potential. I mean, do you even think Kieran McKenna is going to stay around? I'm not sure. If a bigger job comes hunting, who's to say why he would want to stay around? I'm not sure. But well done, Ipswich. You've done amazing. I hope you do well in the Premier League because we can do with a stop constant yo-yoing between the Premier League and the Championship that every season tries to happen. But you have done what was needed beyond my expectations. 18th, Coventry. Yeah, they actually finished 9th. I think Coventry was quite a weird bunch and stuff this season. Like, they reached the FA Cup semi-finals, which you can go and look at my shorts and my reaction of seeing that penalty. Absolute scenes in that pub when I was with a friend who was a Coventry fan. And I didn't know, like, how many people were going to stay. Like, they already lost Gyökeres, they lost Hamer, and it was like, what's going to happen then? And it looks like we're going to lose O'Hare. It's one of them clubs that's a buy and sell one, but does it incredibly well. They've got some of the best recruitment strategy. And Mark Robbins is a manager that we've got to give some credit to. I've got to say, Mark Robbins, top 5 managers in top 4 leagues? I think so. I actually genuinely think so. I think he could easily slot into a Premier League club, but he doesn't because he's done so much for Coventry. And that's the respect I rate from any manager. So Coventry, even though you bottled the playoffs, that was a big bottle as well. Let's not beat around the bush there, mainly because your eyes were focused on the FA Cup, which is much more prestigious anyway. And to be honest, do we want to see Coventry actually in the Premier League? Because if they are, they'll get battered every single week. Which, so interesting. 17th, I put Queen's Park Rangers. Well, they finished 18th, and they won the dead same goal difference, the same points as Stoke. So I'm taking that as an absolute win. I don't know about Gareth Ainsworth, and I'm not sure about anyone else if they know much about him either. Whether he is he Championship standard? I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. I think he's good for an underdog mentality of getting them out and up into from League One into the Championship and working wonders with Wickham. I mean, I will not deny that. But look at the flipping signings they made. But bringing Asmir Begovic in, and there's so much dead wood in that club as well. Like, I feel like QPR are a club which is going to get relegated sooner or later. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. I know a lot of Championship fans who watch it are sort of like, they need to have a clear out. They're a club which, yeah, they have their moments. I mean, they won the last 3 games of the season, so there must be something in that. But it's just inconsistent, I think is the word which nicely sums it up. 16th, Bristol City. How did they finish 11th? I mean, I know it's mid-table and it wasn't the greatest championship for the entertainer viewpoint, but I think Bristol City have slowly gone about their business this season. You can call me wrong if I'm wrong about that, but I don't think anyone quite saw them when they looked at the table and saw, oh, 11th, Bristol City. Oh, not a bad season then. I don't even think the Bristol City fans thought that much. Yeah, I think it was sort of a mid-table season though. Yeah, I just think, do I see Bristol challenging the playoffs anytime soon? No, because there's such a good bunch of group of people coming in. Like, a lot of the clubs underperformed this season as well. I'm not going to lie. It was quite a bore in some of them matches. They sort of like teams down from Preston, probably down to the sort of Blackburns or maybe QPR. It was sort of like in a mid-table dross, and I'm not convinced they were the most entertaining value. 15th, Rotherham. Yeah, of course they finished 24th. Why would I say that Rotherham finished 15th? I mean, Victor Johansson did prove me right, though. He has been one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship. And that's for a team which was bottom of the league. It says a lot, doesn't it? Tom Eves and Jordan Hugill, I was a bit more disappointed about. I won't deny that. Jordan Hugill, is he past it? Possibly. Possibly. That's somebody who I've got serious question marks over at the moment. I think Rotherham are one of them teams that are just destined to yo-yo. And the thing is, I know that they lost Paul Warne, so it's about trying to find someone who can replace him adequately. But at the moment, I'm not sure how they're going to get out that cycle of promotion from League One, relegation from the Championship, like round like that, because that's what's happening. And I heard someone say, I think it was Ben HD, who was commenting, saying that it's probably better for recruitment that Rotherham are in League One because they're very likely to get promoted. Well, if people want to get promoted, they're going to move to Rotherham and then move on the next season once they get promoted. How do you get out that circular self-fulfilling prophecy? I'm not sure. 14th win with Birmingham City, and they would have been if they didn't decide to appoint flipping Wayne Rooney halfway through the season, wouldn't they? Otherwise, well, now they finished 22nd. I thought John Eustace was a masterstroke, and he was. He left them. We were flipping almost into playoffs, right? They were doing so well under John Eustace. They had so many good players. Everyone was performing, top-notch stuff. And then, yeah, we're American owners, and we don't understand what football is. But we've heard of Wayne Rooney because he's a good scorer, so he must be better than you. So we're going to sack you off and approach this nobody in management terms, Wayne Rooney, to be the manager. And lo and behold, he got him relegated. Well, he didn't actually get relegated because he didn't last long enough to do so. But he definitely did not do a good enough job. And I'm not holding any sentiments out for him because he was a Derby manager, because John Eustace was a Derby player and he was a darn good Derby player as well, and he wasn't going to come in for the cash. So I think, Birmingham, you made the most biggest mess up of your life, and you have to live with that decision now. And what do you do now? Like, who are you appointing to get out of League One? Because your team's rubbish. They're all dead on the floor in confidence. So you need someone to lift that. And you also need somebody who was like, well, you're not just going to go and replace me the first time that some celebrity footballer comes knocking, are you? It's a mess. They may have 6 managers this season. I know some of them are interim as well. But flipping heck, and Tony Mowbray. Like, I don't think he's going to be the sort of person who's going to be able to keep. Would he want to even stick around in League One with Birmingham? I'm not sure. 13th Southampton, and they did actually finish fourth. About to approach into the final at Wembley. Good luck to Southampton because I don't want Leeds getting promoted. So please do a job there. I think the thing is with Southampton is I wasn't entirely sure how many people were going to leave, but they kept a fair few amount of people, and I was sort of gambling on them leaving. Sort of people sort of like Carl Walker-Peters or James Ward-Prowse, and that sort of did James Ward-Prowse leave? I know Carl Walker-Peters didn't, but did James Ward-Prowse? Because, like, realistically, yeah, James Ward-Prowse did. So he went to West Ham, didn't he? But Carl Walker-Peters have been absolutely fundamental this season to the way they've played. And he's done a good, solid job. They'll lose him if they don't win this playoff, almost certainly. But I do think that some of them are appointments. Joe Lumley as a goalkeeper. Why would you buy Joe Lumley as a goalkeeper? Like, but they did get some astute signings, and sometimes proving that I don't know the player doesn't mean they're actually a bad player, because I don't watch every single league in Europe all the time. Like, that's what a scout's for. And you know what? They've done a very good job in finding them potentials. 12th went with Norwich, and they actually finished 6th. Yeah, Norwich have done worse and better than expected this season. Worse in the sense that some people were expecting them to be promoted and they got demolished in the playoff semi-finals. Better in the sense that, like, I think if you look at the Norwich squad, I didn't actually think they were going to go and dominate this league or challenge even for promotion in a way. I mean, you've got some Atalanta's reserve team goalkeeper, which, by the way, I'll touch on now. That is absolutely stunning. Atalanta managing to win the Europa League against unbeaten. Let's not beat around the bush. Unbeaten this season. The Bayer Leverkusen, who just Bayer Leverkusen, hats off to you as well. But also, Adama Lukman being able to score a hat trick in that result. Flipping it. Like, I believe that was the first African player to score a hat trick in the finals of any European competition. 3-0 in Dublin. Immense. And my thoughts is that was one of the probably most exciting games of Europa League finals in a while. And it didn't include an England team. And I'm biased towards England because obviously I am English and I watch football all across England. So I'm not entirely too sure how Atalanta have done this season. They certainly didn't have the hardest running, I don't think. I mean, I think... Oh, actually, no, they did. They had to get past Liverpool. No, I think Atalanta probably had the harder running. I mean, either way, it was certainly a good result. Anyhow, that was for the comment earlier who wanted to know about my thoughts on the Europa League. Well done, Atalanta. That is a good achievement for the first time in their history as well. Back on to Norwich, who also signed Giresunspor's player? Who the fuck is Giresunspor? So this is what I was saying. And there's some guy called Bromley, a team from Bromley, a guy from Bromley called Kellen Fisher. Kellen Fisher's been amazing this season. Like, that has been an absolute steal, if ever I've seen one. So they've done well and they've done badly at the same time. I mean, I know he only made 9 appearances in the Championship, Kellen Fisher, but like to step up and stuff like that. Like, I mean, yeah, I do think Norwich. I don't know. I really don't know whether they should have sacked Wagner. Wagner. I'm not sure. He's German, isn't he? So Wagner. I'm not sure because I want to see where this Norwich team want to go. And they recently got a higher stake from one of the owners, didn't they? Anyhow, 11th Leeds United. They finished third. Yeah, I think more hatred of Leeds was the more reason why I chose this. But yeah, I think Leeds is one of them teams that do well in the Championship, not so well in the Premier League. And if they do get promoted, they'll probably go back down. They'll put up a fight, they'll put up a strong fight, but I think they will go back down. 10th, Hull City. They finished 7th. I'm not too mad about that prediction. What I am mad about, why are they sacking the senior after finishing 7th for, you've not got the most entertaining sign of play, even though they saw the style of play and gave him a 3-year contract extension. That is the most baffling decision that I've ever seen in the entirety of football ownership. So these Turkish owners are the most... It's always a farce at Hull, isn't it? Like, let's be honest. The ownership has always been a farce. For people who wanted to change the name to Hull Tigers or whatever, or even back to the days when they got locked out of Boothbury Park, wasn't it? When back in the day, it's just ridiculous. Like, the whole story of Hull is just one farce to another. But realistically, congratulations on 7th. I'm sure the fans are absolutely delighted with getting into 7th. Better than them League One days you had a few seasons back, eh? But no, I think Hull City and the senior were a perfect match, and I'm not entirely sure they're going to replace them with. Have they announced a replacement yet? I'm not sure. 9th, Swansea. Well, they actually finished 14th, so yeah, I think it was a risk appointing Michael Duff. I do think that he's a good manager for certain aspects, which I'm not sure fit what Swansea want. But I think Swansea are a team that are in a bit of limbo at the moment, as are most teams in the Championship by the looks of it, actually, about whether they want to go and kick on or whether they want to solidify and grow in the Championship a bit of away from the spotlight. Yeah. 8th, West Brom, or West Bromwich Albion. They finished 5th, not 8th. But they've slowly been clopping along this season, haven't they? I don't think anybody has really paid attention in the same way as the people who've been paying attention, like Southampton or Leeds have most of the season. And Carlos Corberán, I think we have already established, is a good manager. And he's really good, actually. He gets the job done. He doesn't make a song and a dance like Bielsa did. When he was an assistant, he was a calm, manageable head. And I think that's the sort of thing. They didn't make any massive signings when I'd made the video originally, so it was a bit hard to sort of see where they were going. But now that they have, I think they have improved. And unfortunately, they didn't get promoted out of the playoffs. I'm not surprised about that, to be honest. Will we see West Brom back in the Premier League soon? Undeniably, they have a chance. I mean, the teams coming down aren't ridiculously overpowered, but at the same time, some of them are going to be wanting or like straight back up. Sheffield United and Burnley always seem to put on a good display in the Championship. Not sure about Luton yet. They're keeping Rob Edwards by the sounds of it. That's going to also throw cash and shadows, because if they play for him and run through brick walls for him, which they seem to do, then there's no denying that they can also get back up there. And especially with that new stadium coming along with Luton. But anyhow, 7th, Millwall. Yeah, Millwall actually finished 13th. Very disappointing for Gary Rowett, I think, this season. Has Gary Rowett lost his touch? That's what I want to know. Let me know in the comments, actually. Do you think Gary Rowett has lost his touch? Because he used to be a serial playoff winner and finishing mid-table. I know it's with Millwall. Millwall's not the greatest squad on earth right now. But I think you got to look at it and think, maybe he has. Like they weren't competitive either. It wasn't like there was like a queue of teams like above that are not on roughly the same points. They were 59 points in the sixth place position on 73. They were nowhere near. Like that for me is enough to prove to me that they have had a bit of an underwhelming season. Sixth, Sheffield Wednesday. Well, what do you get me predicting you as sixth? I think we can both agree I was a bit deluded on that front. But you know what? You did the job which you were meant to do, and you finished 20th, and somehow survived despite looking nailed on for relegation the first day you walked through the door. But somehow you grinded out enough points over the season to get out of the relegation zone. But yeah, passionate fan base, and I thought it was Hillsborough was going to be a bit like the Stadium and Light at Sunderland. I was a bit wrong about that. It was when it needed to be, but it wasn't like consistently the factor. It wasn't the factor which meant that you got into the playoffs because you didn't get into the playoffs for one, and I don't think you can solely rely on crowds. I think, I'm not sure where I stand with Gisco anymore. I did think he was good. I don't know where I stand on him now. That's one of the things that I get a bit, because I think if they stuck with him, they would have been relegated. And Danny Roll as a replacement he did the job. That's the thing. I'm not entirely too sure about Danny Roll. He's never managed before, so it's one of those things like he's a coach and an assistant manager, but no, it was a bit of a gamble, and if the gamble worked, not necessarily saying it will next season though. Fifth, I went with Preston North End. Yeah, and Peony actually finished 10th. They had a very bright start to the season, didn't they? In fact, I would actually sack the manager at the end of this season, because I think if you're going from being high flying in the playoff positions and bottle it like that, Ryan Lowe should not still be in the job, because that was an amazing bottle that I don't think can quite be excused. They won the first 8. Well, they were unbeaten in the first 8 games, and a really, really rocky October to January, when a really good run of form from January to April, and then capitulated at the end of the season. Well, if you're capitulating at that crunch point in the time of the season, what is to say that you're not going to do it again? Like, it was the 42nd match was the last time they won, when they were in 8th place. At that position, it's an ideal time to go ahead and push on and try and squeeze into that playoffs. No, they nosedived into that position. They did have difficult fixtures. They did lose against Norwich, against Southampton, against Leicester, and against West Brom. The only sort of winnable game there was QPR. But for me, like, you got to be winning them games. And if you want to get in the playoffs, you've got to be winning them games. And because they didn't, does Ryan Lowe have what it takes to be able to actually get a team into the playoffs? Because you've got to win the big games. You can't just win the normal games. You got to win every game. Well, that's if you want to get promoted into the by winning it. But you gotta go in there with a mentality that you're going to win that game. And I think a lot of the time it just rolled over. Fourth, I went with Blackburn Rovers. Yeah, this was a mistake. They were in 19th. Right. I think the loss of Brereton Diaz cannot be overstated. That and the loss of Kaminsky has meant that they absolute dregs of the league. And it's only because, let's face it, the relegation teams this season have not been the greatest. And would they have been relegated? Probably not. They're one of them teams which it's almost as if are a bit too big to be relegated. I know no one's too big to be relegated. I'm being there myself. Derby got relegated as well to League One, so I'm not in that position. And Blackburn were recently in League One themselves. But I do think you gotta think that some of them. I actually thought that some of these John Dole Thomason, I actually thought could gotta click out these players and do very well. I mean, didn't Blackburn not that long ago finish in the playoffs themselves? Like, what happened with that club was just. I know some clubs decide that they need to be selling ones, but you gotta bring in the replacements that dead on, certainly going to hit the ground running and get you into that position where you've not just gone back 3 years and all that hard work's been done. Third, I went with Sunderland. Yeah, they finished 16th. That was an interesting one. I'm not entirely sure how they failed so spectacularly at that end of the season. Like, they were 6th for ages, as was Coventry. They were sort of interchanging 6th and 7th with each other, doing a merry little dance, weren't they? And then both decided to lead us on and decided to capitulate. And Sunderland, I think, had it's been most depressing this second half of the season for them. I have a few Sunderland fans myself who are friends with me, and I think it's for them it was just more disappointing seeing that sort of flopping off. Would I necessarily sack the manager? I mean, I might make a video about sacking managers, so I might not talk too much more about doing that, but that might be something which I might think of doing. Should they have sacked Tony Mowbray, Michael? So Tony Mowbray left on the 4th of December, which realistically they shouldn't have got rid of him because it wasn't the worst on the sort of overall. They weren't the worst team during that time. They were in 9th, just outside the playoffs. They weren't too bad. They were 1 win off the playoffs. Then they sacked him. Okay. I mean, they probably shouldn't have got rid of Tony Mowbray. They then brought in Michael Beale. Michael Beale was an absolute useless appointment, as he always is going to be. I'm sorry, but losing 6 in a row before he got. He didn't get marching orders after losing 6 in a row, actually. He only got his marching orders on the 19th of February, which was only having lost 2. So it was probably a bad idea to sack him. But at that point, they were in 10th. So they were still within touching distance then. They then just decided to dive with Mike Dodds. Does anyone actually know who Mike Dodds is? Because I don't. I have no idea who he is. I mean, I know he was some like youth guy who trained for Bellingham and Nathan Redmond, but like he's not a manager. So sacking Michael Beale, although he is a Marmite figure himself, and I'm not a fan of him myself, I don't think he jumped Rangers QPR rather at the first chance to leave, and then by saying, "Oh, integrity and loyalty are a big thing," and then leaving for Rangers a matter of like a month later. I don't know why he didn't go to Wolves anyway, but I mean he absolutely folded at Rangers, and then he came to Sunderland, did a semi-decent job. He wasn't the worst, wasn't the best. He was roundabout. He was in the picture of the playoffs. I reckon the sacking of Michael Beale, it was in some ways, and replacing him with an interim, which no one had ever heard of, was a really bad decision. Because you've got to leave him till the end of the season at that point. Like, you're at the cutthroat edge of that season in February. It can go one or two ways. Yeah, he lost 3 games. I get that he lost 3 games. And it was against teams like Huddersfield, Birmingham, and Swansea, with a difficult run in to come in after that, Norwich, Leicester, and Southampton. But when you're cutting off, sort of, maybe he would have done better against the teams that are higher up in the league. I know some managers do actually immensely well under these more pressurized conditions. So, it was a difficult one. And I think it did lead the interim into a position where he wasn't ever going to be able to recover the ship properly. And yeah, that's why. I mean, third was a bit optimistic by the sounds of it now, but it wasn't at the time either. I mean, you got to look at some of their players. Got flipping Joe Bellingham. What a great player. Like, okay. Second, I went with Middlesbrough. Right, Middlesbrough 8th. Bit of an underwhelming season for Middlesbrough. I mean, they've been going about their business, but they never really looked properly like challenging to the very end. I mean, let's look at the Michael Carrick, good manager. Michael Carrick, a very, very good manager. I don't think there's what he did when he came into Borough was enough for me to satisfy that he was a good manager. Now, what he did this season equally deserves the plaudits. Should he have done better? Should he have gone one better and actually ended up in the playoffs? Maybe. But I also think it's been one of them seasons where I don't think they may have been expecting to go into the playoffs. I think Borough are sort of a team which not entirely sure where they're at right now. But I think they will get into the playoffs again soon, maybe. But we'll see. First, the only one I got right in the Championship dead on, Leicester City. Well, this was easy. Yeah, I think anybody could have gospel Leicester City would have won the league. I mean, they got a champion. They're in the Championship with a Premier League standard team. That team reeked of Premier League quality. Like you can't say that anything else other than the deserve to win the league. And I know they had a little bit of a wobble at the end of the season, and everyone was like, "Oh, what happens if they fall out and go into the playoffs?" Or "Oh, are Ipswich going to claim the title?" But no, they managed to win 3 on the bounce, which was just about enough to get them promoted, and they did the job. So, yeah, claps and well done to Leicester. The Foxes are going back to the Premier League after only one season. Will they stay there? That's an interesting one. It can be an interesting mentality after having just played championship football and dominated. Are you going to still go into the mindset of trying to dominate teams like Burnley have? Burnley went into the mindset of going into the Premier League of, oh, we just blitzed the Championship. Are we going to go and blitz the Premier League? And we've proved that it can be wobbled and can be beaten, this Leicester team. Burnley didn't look like that. Burnley and Sheffield United that season looked like they were absolutely going and mental and that they were going to definitely stay up. Well, I don't think Leicester definitely looked like that. I know they got 97 points, which is flipping good total. But it didn't look like they're going to... They didn't ever actually look like they're going to blitz the league. That doesn't really quite imply to me that if they're going gung-ho, which they may do, I don't know, would Enzo change his style of play to adapt to the Premier League? If he doesn't, feasibly could see them being relegated. But that's a question for another day, I'm afraid. Finally, we're on to the Premier League. I know everyone's favourite league, and they've been waiting for it the entire time. Yeah, it's not. It was half a joke, this league, I predicted, half serious. 20th, I went with Bournemouth. The fact they finished 12th absolutely smacks me in the face, and I'm gobsmacked. Like, how have Bournemouth finished 12th? Adoni Iraola, or however I pronounce his name, I think not Pep, I think he should be given manager of the season, actually. I think, or definitely between him and Unai Emery, because he is underratedly done such a good job. I know Eddie Howe managed to get Bournemouth into a mid-table position like that, but the ability to be able to take that team, which, let's face it, they're not much better than a mediocre championship team, or probably a slightly good championship team, and then get them from zero to hero in absolutely like that, and just, I mean, his achievements with Rayo Vallecano were not an overachievement, and his style of play definitely worked in the Premier League, so I will take them back. But no, Bournemouth, well done, and I look forward to seeing you next season. 19th, Everton. Yeah, I put Everton in 19th. They finished 15th. They did have some points deductions, didn't they? That probably wouldn't have been enough to get them to ninth. Not ninth, sorry. That wouldn't have been enough to get them up to that sort of higher mid-table. But they did safely finish above 19. Now, Sean Dyche was a good appointment. I just thought, player-wise, they don't have that squad. But I think it's just proves that Sean Dyche is a miraculous human being. He can work miracles with any club. Give him a budget of like 2 pence, and he somehow manages to make a team that can stay in the Premier League. Like, realistically, how have they done it? I mean, I know the Premier League's been rubbish this season, but how have they done it? Like, the investment was just not there. It was just a club which looked in despair. Yeah, I am really a cool rapper and have been doing this for way too long. But I just think Everton have just done something this season that I don't think enough people give them credit for. Being able to stay up like that, not even like Nottingham Forest by the skin of their teeth. No, they've been 40 points. They're reaching the elusive 40-point mark, which is what every single person says you need to stay up. Well, they did it. So, very well done. 18th went with Tottenham as a bit of a joke. But I must say, Ange Postecoglou, stop yapping. I think that's the politest way to say it. I mean, you're complaining about the Spurs fans. Understandable, we all do it, but we're not the manager of Spurs, so we can complain about them whenever we want. But I think when you've lost 4 in a row and you're going in saying the reason is because that they're booing the players and such like, well, let them boo. You're here for a sporting event, realistically, and you're quite new to the league yourself. So I know you'd been in Scotland and pretty much all around the world. I was actually quite shocked when Tottenham appointed Postecoglou as the manager. And do I think I thought it was going to be a bit like Steven Gerrard? You know, you appoint someone from Scotland, you're never going to end up getting quite just that bit of an experience and know-how at the higher, more competitive levels. And I think that kind of shows when we see that Tottenham finished 5th when they could have just about snuck into the Champions League. That for me just shows it's not been great for them. Yeah. 17th, Nottingham Forest. I actually got this one dead on, which I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because I'd rather they go down, but at least I got one right. It's a tough one. Yeah, they did break FFP. And they didn't even get to the 40 points mark, didn't they? They got 32 points. They did break FFP. And they should have been kicked out for breaking FFP, just like Man City. They should be kicked out of the league. No, I jest. But I do think Forest, you got to look at the club in the future. They can't continue. That's not a sustainable business model. Finding like 30 players and like selling 2. You've got a squad of like 729. And half of them are injured all the time. And the manager has not got a clue. So no, I personally think that Forest are a team which is on my radar for being relegated, although they have had a bit of know-how and experience now, so I'd rather they did get relegated. 16th went with Luton. Well, they actually finished 18th. I thought that bit of plucky spirit, would have had a bit of a going at it. But no, I mean, Luton are a team which certainly to me was a surprise package, weren't they? I think they came in off the playoffs. No one really knew or expected what was going to happen. But somehow they did it. Somehow they performed. They didn't finish bottom. They weren't with the whipping boys. They went with passion. They went with energy. They were a credit to the Premier League. I've seen comments on the Instagrams of the Premier League channel saying from people across the globe that they've been really enjoying seeing Luton, and that they want to. They were really excited by them, and that they were a good club and a credit to the league. So they are a club which I think can leave with their heads held high despite being relegated, which cannot be the same thing said for both Sheffield United and Burnley. You should be ashamed of yourselves. 15th, Sheffield United. Yeah, there were some underlying problems, but that is no excuse to get 16 points. And that's coming from a Derby fan where we got 7 points one season, okay? Was it 7 or 11? I can't even remember now. I'm so tired and too bored of reading this. But it was, I just know that it was such a below par season. And I actually think both Wilder shouldn't have been appointed as a replacement to begin with, but Heckingbottom, I actually beginning to doubt his qualities as a manager. He's gone out and slagged the owners off. He's slagged the players right off and said that no one wants to play for this club, and he's pretty much thrown the towel in halfway through the season. Well, that's just asking to be sacked. Well, I don't know. I think it's one of them things which it's interesting. Will Sheffield United be able to rebuild and get promoted again from the Championship? I'd want to know. I really do. I am at the moment. I can see it. I'm not gonna lie, I can see it just because it's in their DNA. But it's at the same time they have just been the whipping boys, so they're gonna have to have a long rebuild and think and acknowledge that their defense has been woeful. They've conceded way too many goals this season, more than Derby. I think it's a record. They're the only team to have ever gone over 100 goals conceded. 104 conceded is an absolute embarrassment. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should have a long, hard look at themselves, and the owner should stop wanting out and actually put his money where his mouth is. If you're such a so-called Prince Abdullah, like who the heck are you to go and ruin a club like that? 14th, Aston Villa. Right, well, I thought Villa overachieved getting you Conference League. Proved I was wrong, didn't I? Because finishing 4th in the flipping Champions League positions, Aston Villa have done great under Emery. Emery, must say, probably one of the greatest managers that we can talk about. And I thought they were going to focus on the Conference League, much like West Ham did. They didn't, probably why they went out so early. And got battered about by Olympiacos. And so it wasn't early, but it was like mid-season, like the midway through the competition. I do think Villa certainly have that team, which I think so many people slept on at the beginning of the season. I think I look at it, and that is actually a team that could... where is the ceiling for Villa? In a few years' time, with the right investment, I'm going to say it, could they win the league? Man City have to get punished first, but could they win the league? Klopp leaving Liverpool? I don't think Arsenal always bottle it anyway. Could we see Villa win another league? It'd be interesting. Let me know. Am I just alluded? 13th, Fulham. That's dead on right. Yes, I got that one correct. I thought they hadn't weakened their squad. They were top 10 standard last season. I thought they actually improved it with some of the additions from Wolves. But I did think that sort of like some of the players that they were brought, like some of the increase in quality in other teams. I mean, you're notably looking at your teams like Brighton's, your teams like West Ham, your teams like Crystal Palace, the teams which were above them this season. You look at them and you think, yeah, I could see that Fulham won't necessarily be in the top 10 this season. But we mustn't forget that Fulham being 13th is still an excellent achievement. 12th, Manchester United. Well, I finished 8th, so I'm not actually that too far off. They've been a bit poor this season. I mean, is their squad actually good? Am I the only person who thinks that their sort of squad isn't really below par? Onana at the beginning of the season was absolutely woeful. Let's not forget his ridiculous acrobatic sort of sitting like a chair, and not the good types of acrobatics either for a goalkeeper. Man was just bored halfway through. I mean, their defence looks zero effort wise and had so many injuries that they had to play Casemiro in defence, and Casemiro didn't want to be there, so he just chucked the towel in during the games. I mean, Rashford hasn't been performing, hence why he's not in the Euros team for England. So that just proves enough for me, because Rashford's one of the golden boys for Gareth Southgate. So it just, yeah, really, and enough said about Ten Hag, the better. That man is a disgrace. He sort of, I mean, he just comes up with excuses, but it's not excuses that work, because he's just gone and he's unlikely to even get Europe. He needs to win the FA Cup to get Europe against City. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. But no, let's just leave it at that, because Manchester United get too much airtime on the media as it is. 11th, Chelsea. They finished 6th. What an end to a season. I think that's quite an interesting thing. They were 11th for the longest time, weren't they? I wasn't deluding and dreaming when I said 11th. They were 10th, 11th for a long, long time. There were bants all around about it, but like, I wasn't wrong when I came into it. I mean, they had an uptick in form towards the end of the season. That was certainly true. I did also think they're going to get points deducted for FFP. I do think Poch is a bit overhyped. I think we can now all agree that Poch is a bit overhyped. He's been sacked, hasn't he? Yesterday, he got sacked by Chelsea. Yeah, interesting move, considering they still got Europe. And also the fact that most of their players haven't even left school yet on 7-year contract. What a mad businessman Todd Bowley is. Well, 10th, I went with Burnley. Well, that was an absolute farcical prediction in my regards. To be fair, Vincent Kompany had that style of play about him that looked very energetic, very refreshing, sort of the things which tend to work right in the Premier League if done right, well. The issue is he didn't have the players to be able to do it. Hence why he's now moving to Bayern by the looks of it. 99.9% certain, maybe even been confirmed as we are making this video. I'm just going to quickly see if it has. They're close. Apparently, they're close to the agreement with a advanced talks, according to the BBC. So pretty much a done deal by most regards, by the sounds of it. So he's clearly done something right, despite getting 24 points this season, which, let's face it, isn't a great points to total. But he has actually played some decent football, which could finish 10th in the Premier League with a club with the right resources at its disposal. So, 9th, Wolverhampton Wanderers. They finished 14th. It is mid-table. It's sort of where I roughly expected them. I think it's one of the things at Wolves. It was a bit of a shock for me that they've been the one which is like leading the tirade against VAR, haven't they? They've been the sort of people who like proposed a motion to scrap it, and I think there've been a bit too much moaning and a bit too little focus on the pitch. I mean, they only needed 3 more points rather, and then they got to 10th position. So it's not as if it was a million miles off saying 9th. They have the team which is available to do it. They just, is Gary O'Neill the right person? I mean, I thought so, yes. He overachieved with Bournemouth, and I think he was quite good at overachieving at this level, but we'll see. 8th, Newcastle. Well, they finished 7th, and it was on goal difference, so I'm going to take that as a yeah. I think everyone was a bit surprised when we got Champions League, including myself. I think they did take the eyes off the ball during that Champions League event sort of thing. I know a lot of the fans were very pumped around here because I'm now living in Newcastle, who were sort of like, when PSG came and Dortmund came to St James's Park and stuff like that, it was like, yeah, that felt real buzzing them days actually. But I think overall it's just been they've had too many off days or too many injuries as well as part of the result of it. But let's not delude ourselves. Even without the injuries, I don't think there would have been a top 6 finish. I just think at the moment, 7th is perfect for where they should be. Actually, if City win the FA Cup, which is I'm pretty much guaranteeing it. I mean, I'm going to go with that. Then they will get Conference League football, which is probably where they're right at. I think that's where their standard is, and they could win the Conference League. I don't think it will be too strenuous on them as opposed to the Champions League. 7th went with West Ham. West Ham is an interesting team. They finished 9th this season. Now, I think David Moyes leaving West Ham, big blow at the end of the season, I must say. I thought that West Ham and Moyes were a perfect fit for each other. They did well. They reached Europe a couple of times. They got a Conference League. Like they're a team which has really got their chest puffed out right now. Like I know they finished 9th, which is pretty bang mid-table, but I think as a result of some of the recent achievements they've had, like what's to say that this team isn't one of the ones which will go down in history as one of the better West Ham teams? Like you look at the ones in the 1960s when they won the other European competition, was the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup with the iconic trio from the England Lions, 3 Lions during the 1966 World Cup. So you sort of look at West Ham and you see a book of history, but this history is being written now, and in a way, I think they definitely Will Lopetegui, I think it is who's come in now. I might have got that mixed up, but I think it's Lopetegui. Will he be able to achieve the same things for West Ham and David Moyes did? We'll have to see, because I think David Moyes actually overachieved a bit in terms of looking at that squad. 6th, Brentford. Well, I was wrong about that because they finished 16th, and I think even Thomas Frank must admit and be frank. Do you get what I'm saying? That was an appalling pun. I apologise. But I think if you look at it, they lost Ivan Toney, which is, I think, the biggest issue. If they didn't lose Ivan Toney, they would have been much better. And Ivan Toney, even since he's come back, has looked arrogant. He's looked sulky, spoiled, uninterested, looking for a move away. I think he's been detrimental to the team instead of a positive improvement. I think that's my issue with Brentford this season. And they've always been looking over their back. They haven't quite been like saying, oh, we can reach like top 10 or something like that. They need something to like grasp as something for an achievement. And I think that's just been lacking this season. They've just sort of played football. It's not been great football. It's not been worse football. It's just sort of doesn't feel like it's Premier League. You know, I don't get excited in the morning to go and watch Brentford, as somebody may do when they go and watch Luton. Like, Luton excites people. That's all I'm saying. 5th, Arsenal, and they finished a grand total of 2nd. Well done, Arsenal. You proved me wrong. I wasn't convinced that you'd be able to replicate last season, like the season before. And you got to think, they do seem like quite a bottle job. I mean, I think squad assets, they have got some of the best young defensive players in the league. I think you look at Saka, he's a great player. You look at Martinelli, you look at the people like Odegaard, you sort of see these sort of players who have really sort of come through leaps and bounds over the last few years. I'm still not convinced about the goalkeeping department. I think that has let them down at a few points this season, although they have had the best defence in the league. So maybe I'm waffling. But I do think clean sheets-wise, absolutely mental. I think it's off the scale for me. And I think, you look at Arsenal, and I wanted them to win the league. I really did, because I thought Man City winning the league would be boring, even though it would be proven correct, as you'll find out later. I just think it would be nice to have somebody other than Man City winning it. I didn't care if it was Liverpool, whether it was Arsenal. I just wanted someone else to winning it. But no, Arteta has proven himself to be a good manager, and a manager which is worthy of conversation to be up there at the moment as one of the top 10 managers in the world. I mean, it's definitely on people's lips now. I think he's finally getting the credit he deserves. Fourth, I went with Crystal Palace for some reason. Bit odd. Yeah, I did say these were jokes, but happy April Fools for the 10th place, though, Crystal Palace finished. So I'm not actually saying lying down, but that's a bad performance, because that they did actually do quite well this season. But I mean, I thought, like, you know what, there'll be one team which overperforms. And for me, like, Crystal Palace are the sort of team which you look at the squad and they do look like they would overperform. Has there been one which really, I mean, Villa, I suppose, overperformed this season. But I think Palace did well this season. 10th is roughly where people expect Palace to be. If you actually look at it, that squad has been a good squad. It's been a good group of players. And I think it was interesting seeing Hodgson leave, because obviously he left with them in 14th, which is like, where do you really expect Palace to be? But then ever since the new guy came in, absolute revolutionary. Like, I'm looking forward to next season at Palace. If I was a Palace fan, I'd be like, well, what's next? But yeah, third, Brighton and Hove Albion. Well, they finished 11th. Yeah, I just thought there were some good players. There's a really good like recruitments. I think some of the losses did hamper them a bit, and I think, I'm not going to lie, that was sort of one of the main reasons why they didn't do as well this season. Maybe we could have finished top 6 if they kept the people like McAllister or Caicedo or people like of that ilk. But like, I do think it was quite a solid team, and Brighton just clock along without people really questioning it. Don't they? It's all them teams, like, they look the part of being in the Premier League. They don't look like they're playing like they don't belong there, which I think is what my criticism of Brentford maybe this season has been. They've sort of played like they don't belong there. Yeah, I think, yeah. Second at Liverpool. Okay, I originally was like, oh yes, Liverpool in second, until they bottled it. Yeah, I'm sorry, but they did bottle it. It's a shame for Klopp in a way. His farewell season, all he's won is the EFL Cup, and in a sense, that's a bit of a nothing trophy. Not to dispute the importance of cup competitions, but it's the least important one he could have won. I do think it's that it was just at the end of the season. They were relying on a couple of youngsters here and there with some injuries, and it just sort of meant that he did astonishing to even achieve top 3 finish, to be honest, thinking about it. Because that squad, like, yeah, you get your standard players, your VVD, your sort of Andy Robinson, you got your Trent, you got everybody who sort of pulled their weight. But like, a lot of injuries throughout that season, and Liverpool always seems to get injuries, so I don't know what Klopp does in training. But they did much better this season. And I must say, farewell to Klopp. He's been an absolute legend. He leaves as one of the highest regards I have for managers. He left with him probably being like definitely within probably top 3 minimum of sort of. Would it like where would we sort of rank managers? Like, let me know where you would put Klopp within the current managers. I know he's about to leave. Well, he's left now. But if he was like where he was now, where would you put him? Because I think I would have put him probably top three. I really would. But yeah, I think he's done very well. I wish him best of luck wherever he's going next, and hopefully Liverpool will do all right under Slot. He seems to be a good manager, but I have my trepidations about appointing Dutch coaches after the last few farces, eh? And then finally, surprise, surprise, Man City won the league. We can finish this video because everybody knew it. No, but it was actually a closer run affair this time. And it was nice to see Pep's tributes to Klopp. I think Pep does deserve himself to go in there. I think he's currently now the second best ones behind Simon Weaver, because I think Simon Weaver, what he did at Harrogate to be able to get them even into the Football League to begin with, is incredible. But I think second, Pep Guardiola for the top four, which means that he's the best in the Premier League. I think, yeah, it's a total interest to me, seeing how the obviously we've got them FFP charges. Now, where does City go with that? Because I actually think these. Actually, I've heard somewhere they're not actually called FFP charges, because these are 115 charges. Some of it's for falsifying accounts, and that's illegal. Well, if that's illegal, then they can't play in the Premier League. They'll have to be forced out and start over again under new ownership. Well, I don't know where that entails and where they're going to leave them. Is that all the contracts going to be left out? I do not know. I spoke about that particular matter in a different video, which you'll be able to find on my channel somewhere. I think it's called like clubs breaking effort or points deductions or something like that. But yeah, so I have finished all my prediction recap. I hope you did enjoy both this video and the previous one. Please subscribe and like both videos. I know I've been speaking for almost 4 hours, okay? So need a break, need support and love from the people in the comments, especially you, Will, who have been popping off with Enroll We Trust and stuff like that. And really glad you have your support here. Stick around. Should be doing some more stuff, maybe making a video about how I normally do about sort of managers, whether they should be sacked or whether they should be staying, or all sorts of sort of different ideas. But yeah, and predictions will be coming shortly. Goodbye for now.